we do some work on Latin America, and we have been for the last 15 years. And in this town, there isn't quite as much interest as I think there should be. I mean, Latin America did go through a decade, and Guillaume alluded to it some, where poverty was reduced from 44 to 28% in the region as a whole. And as Guillaume mentioned, the standard narrative that we see here is this was just a commodities boom, and now that boom has busted, and everything's going to hell, and they'll have to go back to more neoliberal policies. And so I just want to fill in a couple more details because you can have time for everything. But I think Ecuador is probably the best example of why that's really not true, because they had to do a whole set of institutional, policy, and financial reforms especially, in order to achieve the success that they did. And they did achieve success. They reduced poverty by 30% by 2014. They reduced inequality. The ratio of the top 10% to the bottom decile went from 36 down to 25. They increased access to health care. As Guillaume mentioned, they tripled the percentage of GDP that went into public investment. They were able to do a huge stimulus during the Great Recession of 5% of GDP, which greatly softened the impact of that under very hard conditions. And they lost about 6% of GDP in remittances. They were very dependent on that, as well as not only the oil prices, which collapsed. So these were remarkable achievements, and I have to say there was a huge handicap here, which was mentioned, is they don't have their own currency. And I could spend time talking about it just in 30 seconds. If you don't have your own currency, you don't have exchange rate policy to get out of a recession. You're very restricted in terms of using monetary policy. And even fiscal policy is restricted. So the three major instruments that a government has are severely reduced and almost eliminated in some aspects. And so they had to be very innovative and creative to do any of the things that they did. And so they forced, for example, the banks in the country to bring back their assets that they had overseas. In 2009, I think it was, they set a 45% requirement for liquidity, domestic liquidity. They had to have their liquid assets in the country, and then that was raised to 60%. They took control over the central bank. This is heresy in Washington. Central banks are supposed to be independent, which of course means they're independent of the public but not of the financial sector. And so they took control of the central bank. They had a board that included all the ministries and a new planning ministry. A new antitrust body was created. So these are massive changes in regulatory reform, a lot of which we could use here, as we learned after the Great Recession. Because, as Guillaume mentioned, they had a financial crisis in 1999, and they wanted to avoid that again. And again, if you don't have your own currency, you have to have enough reserves. You have to avoid a balance of payments crises. You can't even have your central bank play the main function that a central bank plays in all countries, except Europe, as a lender of last resort for the banking system, because they can't create the dollar. So these are the things that they had to deal with. And it was good you have a president who also has a PhD in economics and is a serious economist and understood these things. But it was also good that they were able to build the institutions and do the enormous financial and regulatory reform that, again, that we could use here in the United States. We made a little bit of inroad with it with Dodd-Frank, but this was much, much more, and it was extremely successful. So I won't go into any more detail here on what else they did, regulating interest rates and the other things they were able to do by taking control over the financial system and regulating it really for the first time in the way it should be regulated. But I think there's one last point that is extremely important from this, and that is that if you look again at the conventional wisdom, besides the myth about this all being a commodity boom and all going down the tubes now, There's another narrative that says that the global economy really restricts what you can do. That a country, especially this is a relatively small economy, a middle-income country, they really have to just do what international investors want. They can't really accomplish something like this. They're just too tied by the global economy to do any of these things, and now the law on tax havens as well, which again, very creative and innovative. And I think Ecuador proved that this was wrong. Besides the default on the debt, 3.2 billion at the end of 2008, and all the other things they did, they were able to do this. And this shows that it's kind of a myth, that globalization really constrains governments from doing what they were elected to do on economic policy. And if I had another hour, I could go into that some more, but I'll leave it there. Thanks.